have just written down women or men, that you've narrowed a little bit more than that. But what we're going to try and help you do is to think about how to segment your market by grouping people in ways that that make it easier for you to market to them because they have things in common. So when you think about market segmentation, it may be people that have the same needs but are not the same people. So it may be that, interestingly, people who are elderly and need some sort of daycare assistance in order for them to function, and also small children have a daycare need. They are completely different segments, but they have a common need for care that means you actually have a crossover of need for them. This is probably not who we're going to be talking about in any of our projects, but think about groups that seem like they're completely have nothing in common, but they may have a very common need. What's interesting is that when you start to dig into your market segments, you'll find that they have pretty common characteristics when you start to segment them out. They're going to have similar interests, they're going to have similar geographic overlaps as you start to think of them. So what you're going to do, who started to write down some things about their audience, their customer? Amy, what did you write down?
So I put bedroom boutique stores, decorators, corporate company gifts, the organic, what do you call it? I don't sell organic because we tried it one time, but if you're marketing, if y'all like to buy organic, you've got certain websites that you go to that basically.
Right, because they have interests that are similar and lifestyle pieces that are similar.
Yeah, they want that hug a tree cinnamon feel, so that would be on that. But that's also high-end stores, and I put high-end stores. I mean, you're gonna, if you want a specialty interest, you're gonna be paying more on those different costs. But that relates to gender and age and.
Yes.
I mean, when I was a college student, no, I didn't go in fabric stores and look at high-end fabrics, but it's a different.
Right, because it wasn't your thing. But figuring out more of those common groups that you can identify that have enough numbers in them that they're worth talking to specifically is part of what market segmentation is. So one of our Evolve graduates is a woman named Jan Harrison, who was a science teacher, and she had this passionate dream that she wanted to make a company that used quilts that had the characters of children's books on them and have a package that involved the quilt and the children's book together so that mothers were encouraged and fathers were encouraged to read with their kids, and that they would snuggle up and read. So it was a literacy project for her. It was a cozy, comforting, kid development project for her. She was not a quilter, she was not a writer, but she had this passionate thing, and she created a company called Novel Blankets. She's now employing quilters and has lawyers working with her with local children book authors so that they actually have this crossover, and the book authors have characters that are now on a quilt that a family can buy as a little package. So let's think about who are some of the market segments that she might have wanted to talk to right away from that product.
Well, she needed all the components to make the product.
Yeah, so don't worry about how to make it.
You're not talking about that.
Interest.
The people who she wants to sell to.
Pregnant parents. Life interest.
The pregnant women.
Pregnant women.
Parents.
Parents.
Readers.
Readers.
I was thinking of orphanages or places that need it.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, orphanages. Part of her business model was not unlike the Tom Shoe model. It was sell one, give one away. So for sure, that actually is another piece of that. So think about pregnant women. What else can we know about pregnant women that might be valuable if we start to dig back into what are their interests, what are their lifestyle? It can't just be all pregnant women. What else would they need to be?
People's nursery. Family of pregnant women.
Literate.
Yes, that actually matters. They need to have an education level that makes that appropriate, and that they actually value
I mean,
that
it's important
time,
to do
because
that.
part of her business model wasn't assuming that she was teaching people to read and that they didn't value this. So she was making an assumption, which was that parents wanted their kids to be hearing language and encouraging reading and experiencing in that way. So all of a sudden, when you start to dig that in, okay, yes, you've got women. I don't know where we can go on age. Under 50, we'll say, these days.
It's also women that can have the time to read. You've got to have people that have jobs that are
Could be
coordinated.
grandparents too, yeah.
Totally could be grandparents. Yeah, you were heading down that road of family of people who are pregnant. But think about how when you start to sort of dig into that, you can start to narrow things down, because you realize that you don't want to just talk to all pregnant women. You actually need to start narrowing down who you're thinking about, and that'll help define how much you want to spend on your product and how developed does it need to be, because are these, if we decide that we're talking to educated women in this particular segment, educated women who have a certain income level, that might determine the quality and size and materials used for that quilt that is included with the book. It might imply that the content of the book matters. What kind of messages is the book going to be sending to that audience? Because there are some people who are going to want a very traditional family described in that book, and some people maybe want a more alternative, interesting, loose definition of what family means that's described in that book. And all of those things matter. And if you haven't thought about who you're actually trying to market to, you may not be making the right product, or you may be trying to sell in such a broad manner that your resources that you have, and they will be small, to use for your selling and marketing process are going to be wasted, because you're not getting tight enough on who you're trying to talk to. So, here's what you're going to do now. You've started to work on who that audience is. So now we're going to break again into groups of 3, 3, and 4. And you're going to brainstorm together to dig in, help each other dig in, because it's not going to be intuitive for all of you to say, oh yeah, I really only want to talk to the women between the ages of 24 and 35 about who have an education level of a master's degree. You're going to have to help each other figure this out. And for some of you, thinking about who you want to work for, who you want to make things for, really is important. Because when you're making, you want to be passionate and excited about who you're making things for. And if you're imagining making things for people that you don't enjoy, just because you're making money at it, how long is that going to be pleasant for you? Psychographics, how people,
How crazy you are about it?
yes.
I just looked it
Oh.
up because I was curious. So I just was looking up the definition: the study and classification of people according to their attitudes, aspirations, and other psychological criteria, especially in market research.
So it's how people feel about products, about colors, and it is psycho. And what is going to be frightening the next week is how much of this you can find out about individual people online.
That's creepy.
Yeah, it is ridiculous. And don't think that people are not looking at all of this. Except for anyone who's on Facebook, there is unbelievable data being mined from the things that you click on that you say you like, the events that you're interested in. It is stunning how much information there is out there. Now, that is just sort of our reality at this point. So the question is, how can we use that to help find the customers that we want to work with and figure out how to communicate with them? The good news is it means that you can actually find them really easily once you've identified who they are.